Blog Talk Radio.
For them to get recognized. This is my version of the Nobel Peace Prize. That's why I'm coming out my face like this. Far as negativity, you never get this. If it wasn't for you, nobody would know. That's why this is some boy radio.
Welcome to Silver Alert, everyone. This is your host, St. Asha. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Thursday night special. We're bringing you more insight. And like Biz said, you know, this is definitely something for the radio. We have here tonight with us Sheik Jabbar Gaines-El. He's over Temple number 19 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And we're going to discuss who are the Moors. About a couple of months ago, when I was doing some research in regards to keyword popularity, I saw that in a given month there were over 1 million global searches within Google for the phrase, who are the Moors? So it's obvious through this resurgence and another renaissance, a literal rebirth, that everybody is questioning. They're on a quest and they're seeking their information. They want to know. So it was just so timely tonight to have Jabbar on. You probably heard him on the radio. We had him here about 2 months ago, and he had organized the Moorish Unity Summit. So we'll highlight several things, and the main thing, we'll do a historic overview and then bring it up to date, modern day, and especially like focusing on the recent propaganda. And you all may say, oh, my, you're talking about that again. But we just have to keep on bringing this to the forefront because the propaganda machines that try to put labels on us and to try to put this discreditation on who we are as a people, that is like a constant psychological attacks and mislabel. And so we will be touching on the issue with sovereignty. That's going to be something big that we're going to break into and give you more details on that. So without any further delay, I will bring Sheik Jabbar El Gaines on.
Islam.
Jabbar, how you doing?
Excellent. How are you?
Oh, all is well on this grand night. So how's everything in Indiana?
Everything's moving right along, of course. We still have the people coming along, the people joining into the ranks and, getting their questions answered. And we still are dealing with some of the opposition. Some of the individuals of the past who were harassing us, they're still there. So we're just doing the work. That's all we're doing. We're doing the work and redeeming our people.
I hear you on that. You know, I've never been to Indiana. What's the historic landscape of Indiana?
You know what? It's not much here in Indiana as far as for the eye to see. It's pretty much flat land. But we are a mixture of almost everybody that's surrounding us. I mean, we're made up of Chicago. We're made up of Detroit, Cleveland, Ohio. Everybody. So it's a nice pool of different people, cultures. It's a nice mixture of people here to fellowship with and get to know. So it's a nice environment. I mean, it's good. And as far as the economy, it's one of the most affordable places to live right now in the Union States.
You said Union States. For everybody that's listening, Jabbar, what do you mean when you say Union States?
Well, we just mean, within the United States, throughout the 50 states, South Carolina and Indiana are two of the most affordable places right now to live. So if anybody is thinking about relocating to better their situation, get their households in order, you might want to consider that.
Wow, that's key. So, I mean, pretty much have the prices, dwindled down to, probably underneath, $10K for a single-family residence?
Hey, it's very affordable. I can say that. It's very affordable. In contrast to when I was out there in New York looking around and even Chicago, I mean, those prices out there are pretty exorbitant. So for more, like I said, those who are thinking about relocating to better their condition and to better their personal lives to help assist in this movement, it might be worth considering or investigating and relocating to either South Carolina or Indiana.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. There's nothing like mortgage-free and rent-free living.
No, it's nothing like that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, go ahead,
No, I was going to say, but if we can, I really did want to jump right into the information, we did want to cover some very fundamental concepts of the Moorish movement, Moors in particular. Who are the Moors? Our status, our goals. We need to cover some of these things so people can have a better clarity as to what's really going on. So if you don't mind, we can just like to immediately let the people know to be a Moor simply means that we are the original people of not just America, but we are the original people of all of the continents on this earth. Okay, we are the original people. We are the first inhabitants. We are the fathers of civilization. So for those who may know this already, I just ask that you bear with us so that we can catch everybody else up to speed, because it's very, very important that our people get the right concept of what's being taught in the Moorish movement, as opposed to some of the propaganda that our opposition may be disseminating amongst the public. But as Noble Ali taught all the Moors, that there was a time when all of the continents were one landmass, one solid piece of land, with no oceans in between them. It was just one solid piece of land. And our people, the original dark-skinned Africanoid, if you will, Africanoid people, dark-skinned with woolly hair, we subdued the entire landmass. And after thousands of years, by way of earthquakes, this one landmass split up into several continents, forming the Atlantic Ocean and creating different jurisdictions of government and society. So regardless of what part of the world from which you may derive, the original inhabitants are the Moors, are your dark-skinned, woolly-haired people of the earth. So that's very, very crucial, and it's very, very fundamental that we understand that.
And what exactly does the word mean?
Now, there's various definitions and understandings and translations of the word Moor. Okay? Fundamentally, for our people to understand, the Moors are the original dark-skinned people. It means a melanated person, a dark-skinned melanated person. That's what the word Moor means. But it also has other definitions as a navigator, because the Moors were navigators. So there's various meanings to Moors, but the actual definition for our people to understand, and the most primary understanding for what a Moor is an original dark-skinned melanated person with woolly hair that's natural to the land. That's what a Moor is. And that's who our people are. We're the Moors. We're the original people. It doesn't give us a blank check to do whatever we like. It doesn't give us a blank check to disregard any type of rules or good courtesy towards other members of human family, but we are the original people. So that's what it is. And being a part of the original people, there are certain laws that apply to us. There are certain immunities that we do have and we possess. There are certain privileges that we have for being the original people with our status within this land. So those are things that we want to really start to uncover, because our people have been robbed, and we're still being robbed. We're being taken advantage of. We're being mishandled, displaced throughout the prison system, all really because of our status. There are a lot of things that we wouldn't have to experience or suffer if we just knew the basics of law and knew the basics of how to function as a free national person. So tonight we want to get into some of that, where we can relieve ourselves of some of the strains that some of our people might be going through.
You started out and you said that there's a lot of propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
In general, what have you came across when it comes from a historical perspective when the word Moor is mentioned?
Well, of course, even right now, I'm at a university. And one of the things, historically speaking, that a lot of the scholars who like to reconstruct history, they want to miseducate the masses by saying that the Moors, I even heard some outrageous scholars, European scholars, even make the claim that the Moors were Caucasian. Believe it or not, it gets that crazy. But what they want to do is they want to try to basically, excuse the word, whitewash. They want to whitewash the original Africanoid, dark-skinned, woolly-haired people out of that great legacy. That's what they want to do. Because if you know, of course, everybody knows, once you know what you're able to do, it can inspire you to do it again. So that type of legacy, they don't want that legacy. They don't want that information. They don't want that history to enter or to pierce the minds of our children, because that will corral them to do it all over again. And they may do it even better this time around. So one of the things, like I said, one of the things I've seen, what they're doing is they want to say that, okay, the Moors, and it's all rooted in complete ignorance, but they say that the Moors, okay, are Berbers. But the Berbers, the original Berbers, which means dark-skinned people with beards, they are Moors as well. It's synonymous. It's not something different. Even if they want to say the Moors are Arabs, even the original Arabs are Moors. You follow what I'm saying? So no matter where they try to escape to, that's why it's important to know the fundamental definitions and concepts that the Moors are the original people. Always go back to the original people of the land, even in Arabia. So, yeah, we do have over a millennium where the Moors who did go out to battle, who did go out to subdue land, to go out there and conquer, to go out there and improve other lands, okay? We did take on other nationalities, and we did produce other nationalities, the mulattoes, the Melungeons. We did create these different mixed races. But this came way after the 15th century. We're dealing with, in particular, if we were to look at Al-Andalus, if we were to look at Spain in particular, from the 8th period, from the 8th century to the 15th century, we're talking about jet black, smooth-skinned Moors who resemble our general, Dr. Khalid Muhammad. We're talking about Moors that look like that. And then afterwards, we begin to see the culmination of mixed races and mulattoes. So one of the attacks, like I said, that these scholars, so-called scholars, are trying to do, they are trying to write us out of history so that our children won't be inspired to do the same, if not greater.
So that would be similar to the Hollywood images of the Native Americans and the current day image of modern day people from Lebanon and Syria. And speaking of Syria, one thing that I noticed is that when I was looking in the old Syriac dictionary, it had the word Moor there listed as M-O-R, and it said that was the word for a saint or a noble person. And in ancient times, instead of having Saint Gabriel or Saint Michael, they would have Moor Gabriel. And I reached out to a bishop that was with the Syriac Orthodox Church here in Atlanta, and he did verify exactly, what the dictionary was saying. And what I wasn't aware of, he was saying that the Aramaic tongue as well as is right in pure alignment with the Syriac tongue. And when he said that, it took me back to Acts 13:1, and it also took me back to my roommate back in my college days. And in Acts 13:1, it does say here, now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger or Niger. And Antioch is the ancient capital of Syria. And when I was thinking about, over 11 years ago, I was speaking to my roommate. She is from Jamaica, and she had made mention that in her family, they always knew that their ancestors came from Syria. And when I was so young at the time, and at that time, well, I was probably like 19 or so, and I wasn't aware of the Moorish Science or the ancient history, or knowing that was our attribute. So that just pretty much came all together, like in full circle with what you're saying. So it's just something that it's an aggressive attack and a move to be like, no, this has nothing to do with you. And also, too, Jabbar, what I noticed is that in the Philippines, I noticed that there's an indigenous aboriginal group called the Ati people, and they look like the brothers and sisters here, features, the phenotype, hair and everything. But, of course, amongst them, they're also called they refer to them as the Moros, and they have the annual festival. It's like the Ati festival, or in their dialect, they call it Dayanyang. And all of the modern-day people who we would consider to be the Filipinos, it actually is stated that they are the Malay people that came in. So when they have the Dayanyang, not the conference, but the festival, they all dress up in elaborate costumes. You would think like it's the Brazilian carnival. And they paint their faces black and their bodies black to give homage and honor to the Ati people who let them come and settle in the land. And it's so tripped out to look at that, because I said, okay, letting them settle in the land. My mind automatically flashed to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, letting people come over and set up shop in the land. And then also, too, which was tripped out, was that I was speaking to a lady in India, and her accent at first sounded like she was from the Philippines, because it was, how all of the customer service and everything has pretty much been outsourced. And as I was talking to her, she told me she wouldn't tell me exactly where in India she was from, but I was asking her if she was familiar with the Mormon, because I had first came across that word when I was looking at an old Indian Sanskrit dictionary, and I just saw Mormon in there. And, of course, I did a double take, a look, and I said, oh, that's what they referred to them. And then, of course, I saw the word Musulman. And so I asked her, I said, what do the Mormon or the Moors look like there? And she said, oh, I really can't go into detail. And then I said, do they look like the people in the Andaman Islands or the Nicobar Islands? And she said, yes, they do. And, the original people in Nicobar and the Andaman Islands, they are very, very, very heavy melanated people, and their history goes back over 10,000 plus years. So just to, build on what you're saying, is that this universal presence is everywhere, and it cannot be denied.
It can't. Like our good brother Tariq Bey said, you need to reference and inquire about the Gupta dynasty. And when you speak to our Hindustani family, this is always good, because sometimes I do it. When we go to the gas station, on the highway or whatever, we stop over, and I just ask. I know where they're from. I know their point of origin, but I'll just ask them, are you from Hindustan? And, their eyes just light up, and they just get so excited that they see their brother. Man, how they always ask, how do you know that? Where did you learn that from? And I tell them, that's why our forefathers called your land.
Right.
And they laugh, and they're like, yeah, they give you a high five, whatever. But I definitely can relate to, like you said, these other parts of the world, because my grandfather's from Madagascar, right? And I seen my great-grandfather, like I said, my great-grandfather's from Madagascar. And, I seen photos of people just hanging out, and there's another guy that looks just like me. And I'm not related to him. I was like, not related to him, but looks like me. So, we're a family. Yeah,
I think I know. I have some people that I should connect you with too, because I grew up outside of Buffalo, and there was a brother too, and they traced their lineage back to Madagascar. So it's something that you mentioned that, because I haven't come across too many people that speak on that.
Yeah, we're all over. We're all over this planet, but it's something that they want to keep. And that's a very powerful thing. I can just imagine the mayhem that the Inquisitionists would do had they had a dominant genes. I mean, I'm just looking at what they're doing as a recessive group of people. You know, just imagine if they had the dominant genes. It'd be a real mess. But, you know, going back into some of the reconstructed history that these scholars are perpetrating against our people about trying to strip us of our identity, you know, in modern time and historically, you know. But one thing you can't do once they say that, you know, these are pale Arabs or these are Europeans who accomplished these different tasks throughout Europe and, you know, Portugal and everything, one thing that we can verify is that they have no artifacts of any European Moors. All of the statues are heavily melanated. All of their coats of arms are filled with Moors. All of the sites, they have. You know, I was in the military and I've seen some of these things myself. Not going over there, but I've seen photos from my friends. But all of the bars, things of that nature, all of that has our faces on it. Downtown, the public squares, black faces, the ceremonies that they have, they paint their faces up in black faces, and they they reenact the conflict between the Moors and the Europeans. So they reenact that, and they put on that black makeup to look like us, and they put the turbans on and the feathers, you know, so they know, you know, this is really not even if you were to go to Europe really and try to entertain that idea that it was a bunch of pale Arabs who accomplished that, I mean, you would be looked at as an idiot because everybody knows over there that there was the Moors who came from the south, right out of Africa, coming in there, 70,000 strong, you know, 7,000 strong, different waves of Moors coming in. They knew. And in fact, one scholar even referred to the soldiers, the Moors who were on horseback, as their skins as being as black as ink. And they said the leader that was ahead of the one that was in front, the general that was in front, he was blacker than all of them, but he was on a white horse. So, you know, they reference us. They know who the history is. Now, and, you know, I'm quite candid, and I tell everybody, you know. Plus, I mean, just the anatomy. It may sound a little, I don't know what the word is. It may sound a little, I don't know what the word is. But I'm going to say it, you can see the word, but, you know, I don't think there's no Arab. I have never seen a pale Arab nowhere that look like they can do those physical accomplishments of war that's recorded in history. It can only come from our statute and from our mindsets. And that may sound arrogant, but that work was done by Moors, by black, dark-skinned African Moors. It wasn't done by the weak frames of pale Arabs. I can guarantee you that. So that is definitely our legacy, you know. And then I was at the university today, and I was also even looking at the map, and I was thinking about when people say that it was Arabs, I'm thinking, do you know the distance, the geographical distance from Arabia to Andalus to Spain? Do you know the difference? You know how far that is? All of that war machine was from right there, butted up next to Europe, from Africa, from Morocco, right butted up next to Spain. That flood of soldiers, okay, that garrison going in and out, those are all dark-skinned Moors. I mean, you did have some light-skinned Moors, pale-skinned Moors. I'm not saying that now. We did have some within our ranks. But the accomplishments is definitely recorded under our people. And we should know that and teach that to the babies.
Yes, I agree. So exactly what happened in the case of America? How did everything get switched? And when I said switch, as far as like the transition from Moor to Indian, Negro, Black, how did all of that transpire?
By the same hands that's trying to write us out of history on the other topics, okay? These people, and the same thing that they do, and we'll talk about that maybe another time, the same work that's done throughout the Islamic world in general, trying to write us out of the Islamic history abroad through their hadiths. And basically, for example, I'll give you an example just in the broad sense of the Islamic world and what they do, and then we'll bring it back to how they're trying to strip us of our nationality here in America and what happened with these labels. But what they do, for example, in the Islamic world, the racist theologians, what they do, they will get with a scholar. They will get with a writer of hadith, right? And then you'll have, let's say, okay, one of the guys will be a businessman. Let's say the guy sells oranges. That's what he does in Yemen. He sells oranges. He'll get with the scholar, and he'll say, okay, we need you to write in a hadith, in the Sahih Bukhari, we need you to write that, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that in order to be a good Muslim, that you need to buy at least 3 oranges per week to get to heaven. Right? And then he'll write that. He will inscribe that in the hadith, and they say this is some of the most authentic hadiths and the quotes of Prophet Muhammad. So Muslims around the world over, are reading these hadiths, and everybody's out here buying oranges. So it increases the wealth of the person. Although it's a lie, it increases the wealth of the guy who sells oranges. And he gives his cut to the guy who wrote in the hadith, to the scholar. So what I'm saying is you have that type of paradigm. You have that type of situation going on here in the Americas, where they profit off of us being outside of our true identity. You see, when they came over here, that's why it's so important that when we talk about being indigenous, that this is actual facts. Being the original people here in the Americas is actual facts. Not just from getting carbon-dated statues and stones and instruments and things of that nature, and structures, not even talking about that. Just going as recently to the letter that George Washington, their first president, George Washington, wrote to the Sultan of Morocco asking for permission to live here without being destroyed from the other Moorish regencies who did not trust these Europeans. And they knew that these Europeans were nothing more than convicts from their own jurisdiction. And they didn't want them here. They did not want them here. And if you read that letter, it's dated for everybody. I know a lot of Moors, like I said, I ask that the adepts on the line or the educated Moors who know this history just to be patient for those who may not. But it's important that Moors go get this letter by George Washington, and it's dated. So everybody get a pen and paper and write this date down. And it's dated New York, within the city of New York, December 1st. It's December 1st, the year 1789. That's December 1st, 1789. George Washington is pleading with the Sultan of Morocco to be allowed to live here and to engage in commerce here on this soil. So that's very, 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 very crucial for Moors to know that. That's very crucial. Because, number one, he didn't write a chief. It didn't say chief. He addressed his letter to the Sultan, which is an Arabic Moorish title or rulership. He didn't say Indian chief. He didn't have any other titles. He said Sultan. So that's very crucial for our people to know that we were the ruling political body on these shores. So when we bring things in proper perspective, we're not out of bounds. We're not out of bounds to let the people know that we are the sovereigns to this land. You follow what I'm saying? We're not out of bounds. It's not nothing radical. This is a historical accuracy as well as a contemporary truth. We're the sovereigns of the land. Point blank. In fact, sister, it is impossible. It is impossible, and as well as a contradiction, to declare a free national name and yet deny the sovereign status of the land from which you derive your free national name. Do you follow that? You can't say you're a free national. You can't say you're a free national, right? And then you're not the sovereign of any land. Now, sovereign of the land does not mean that you necessarily you're controlling all of the commerce. Although that is an attribute, but it does not strip you if you're not controlling the commerce due to war. Sovereignty only means that you are tied to the land by birthright and inheritance. That's what the sovereign means, that your people are the original people from that land. And you have the lawful de jure authority over that land. Mm-hmm. Somebody ruling you under duress and gunpoint, okay, doesn't warrant them to have de jure government or de jure authority over this land. And that's what Moors must be made to know, because it's a psychological attack on our people, because our people have a lot of fear in them. Our people have a lot of fear. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get incarcerated. I don't want to have these, I don't want to be able to, I don't want to be denied certain business opportunities by being called a radical, political, sovereign type of person. You follow what I'm saying? That's what the attempt was made on me when they wrote that article, because I was so surprised. Like I told you before a few months ago, I've never been charged with a crime in my life. Never been arrested. But they put me inside of a magazine that also featured people like that blind Sheik that tried to blow up the 9/11 building the first time. They put me in the magazine with all kinds of lunatics. You know what I'm saying? And all of this because we're teaching our people their nationality. So that's why I had to tell the news lady and these different people in the university, why is it or how is it you're able to even suggest that when somebody declares a nationality that is some act of hostility? Why is that so with our people? Why is that so? Why do they consider that an act of hostility or aggression when our people come into the rightful knowledge of their true identity? It's because there's theft that's going on here. There's birthright theft that's going on. So it's a big time issue now. Like I told you a few months ago, it's the equivalent to if you had a burglar break into your house, right? And the burglar's upstairs in the master bedroom. He's taking all the jewelry. He's loading up on all the goods and the valuables. And all of a sudden, in the middle of his heist, he hears the keys dangling downstairs, right? And he pulls out his revolver. Because now he knows that, the owner came home, and he's going to have a confrontation. Because the owner's going to be surprised, he's going to be surprised, and it's going to be a matter of life and death.
Right.
So that's how the Europeans, that's how the Inquisitionists are looking at it. They're looking at it like they're coming home to what's theirs. Once they see these contracts, you follow what I'm saying? Because when they made those laws and policies, those Inquisition policies that our forefathers were not allowed to read or write or acquire an education, it wasn't because so they couldn't enjoy a good bedtime story. It's because they did not want them coming to the knowledge of the contracts of law. They didn't want us to read the Moroccan Peace Treaty. They didn't want us to read George Washington pleading and begging to our forefathers to sit here unmolested. You follow what I'm saying? So this is why they're looking at it at a hostile situation, and they attempt to use psychological warfare on our people to instill fear in them by saying, well, you don't want to be associated with being a sovereign, and they show some wild European, he's out here killing police officers, policy officers on the highway. So you don't want to be associated with that, do you? And I've seen good Moors who said that there's no such thing as an individual having sovereignty, and that is incorrect. That's incorrect. Individuals, as well as the collective, are sovereigns. Now, if they wanted to put that in context, what should have been said, what would have been proper, would have been said that foreign nations from around the world will not deal with governmental protocol with individuals as sovereigns. That would be proper. They won't deal with individuals. They deal with collectives. But as with the arena that we're dealing with, where we have the thieves questioning our integrity and questioning the accuracy of our records, right? Yes, we are individual sovereigns. Our forefathers are tied to this land by birth. We are the inheritors of this land. And there's nothing radical about that. There's nothing hardcore extreme about that. We are the original people of this land. And we're claiming our land. And I'm going to say this real quick. I'm going to say this so we can move along. I'm going to say this. Never forget that Christopher Columbus and all the rest of those guys, all right, that came over here from Europe on those boats, they are just that. They are foreigners and they're Europeans. They are not Americans. They are not Americans. I know we always hear Sean Hannity on the conservative talk show say you're a great American and you're a good American, but they're not Americans. They are Europeans who are ruling by illegal force and occupation in our land.
You know what this illustrates that beautifully and simply? The illustrated story of the three bears. I was in the Goodwill shopping a couple of months ago, and it was just sitting there, so I picked it up for about $1. And when I got to looking, it displays the Papa Bear with his fez on and a green vest and his red pants. And then, you know, as the story goes, Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Little Bear, they leave the house to go about to handle their daily affairs, and then here comes Goldilocks, testing out the chairs, eating the porridge, sleeping in their bed, and as soon as the bears come home, Goldilocks is booking, because she's like, they came back to reclaim their throne. And I would also like to highlight, too, that in the Black Philosopher's edition, underneath the definition for a citizen, it does state, in general, a member of a free city or jural society. But then it goes down into the second paragraph, and it says here, in American law, a citizen is one who, under the Constitution and laws of the United States, has the right to vote for civil officers and himself is qualified to fill elective offices. And then it says, one of the sovereign people, a constituent member of the sovereignty synonymous with the people. So it's just so interesting, like you said, how they've taken this phrase that's always existed historically within their law context and then twist it to equate it with something that's evil. But one thing, too, that we would be remiss in not highlighting, Jabbar, is that there are certain people that have come into the movement, and some of them look just like us, and they do some foul things.
They do.
And to try to paint this image. And I would like to see personally like a nationwide, like a PR campaign, like ousting these people and letting them know that they need to stop. And I was speaking to Brother Hannibal about that because he had brought that up as well. And something needs to be done because what I see is that, like, for me to give you a good example, you know, he made mention of there's several people, and he had talked about them on the last show. I should say 2 weeks ago he spoke on them, that, you know, they came up underneath him and his father with the auspice that they were just, you know, learning and wanting to know more, gain knowledge of self. But a little bit thereafter, they pretty much took the information and literally start hustling and raping the people. And then on the whole of the collectives, though, nobody, like, really shunned them. And, like, for example, I shouldn't say nobody, you know, because they were addressed, but, I mean, on a collective, a large group of people, like, there wasn't, like, a press release that went out or newspaper articles or things of that nature. And I don't know why that would be. Do you think that, like, with us as a people by nature, it's like even when our own people do us wrong, we just like, oh, no, let's just forgive because, you know, they are a part of us, our extended family, so we shouldn't really reprimand them. And so that's why these things continue to go on and on, just like how
because we're very, very forgiving people, and we can be so forgiving to the point where it's detrimental to us. You follow what I'm saying? and that is actually a part of what's going on. But our people, the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, our people are very dangerous people, and that's true. And we have, he taught us to refer to them as dirty Moors, Moors who do these type of advantageous acts of selfishness and greed, and you have Moors who are pursuing these UCCs, whatever, these different bonds or whatever, trying to escape or to avoid good planning and hard work to acquire these things, materialistic things. You follow what I'm saying? I have so many Moors that approach me just to talk about taxes right at the gate. No inquiry to who Noble Drew Ali is, no inquiry to the moral precepts and foundation of the movement. They want to know how can they save a buck. You follow what I'm saying? They want to know how can they get a car and on credit or whatever it is. You follow what I'm saying? These type of Moors, I say you don't ostracize them immediately. You give them an opportunity to come in to learn the moral and spiritual concepts and protocol of the movement and what's expected of us from Noble Drew Ali and our forefathers. That you give them the opportunity. Okay, give them that universal acceptance. And then if somebody proves themselves to be outside of that or contrary to that, then you have to make other decisions to identify them. Simply as dirty Moors. But yeah, we got Moors who come, a lot of Moors. Part of that controversy that we had here up in Fort Wayne was, some of our good Puerto Rican, Moorish brothers from Chicago, they came and ignited some of that controversy. When they said that, there were some guys down at the county recorder's office that was being somewhat belligerent, that was true. They didn't lie. The European didn't lie. And our people be like that. That's why the Prophet told us to go in an intelligent tone, because there are Moors who won't go in intelligent tones. So, yeah, we did have Moors down there who were cocky, knowledgeable, but cocky. And, I heard, like I said, before, I said a few times, I heard, Minister Farrakhan say this good quote, and I heard it when I was 14 years old. I never forgot it. He said, you know what? When it comes to organizing our people, he said two things I like to share. The first thing he said is he said an organized lie is more successful than disorganized truth. He said an organized lie is more successful than disorganized truth. But the second thing I was about to do, really the main thing I want to say is that talking about people being belligerent with the truth and everything, the prophets, Mr. Farrakhan said that if you whisper the truth, it's loud enough. The truth doesn't have to be yelled or anything like that. If you was getting a medical exam and the doctor came back with the results in the room, he shut the door behind him, if he whispers to you, hey, you have cancer, you got about 2 months to live, it's going to hit you just as hard as if he yelled it. You know what I'm saying? So there's no need for Moors to be, belligerent and loud and disrespectful. There's no need for that. So, yeah, there's a lot of Moors who are being selfish in this movement. Some people are coming to the movement with not good intentions or sincere intentions. You follow what I'm saying? They don't know the Moorish American prayer, but they'll run down those UCCs to you. You follow what I'm saying? And it's out of order. Because really, there's a couple good bits of truth to know about the UCCs. I won't deny that. Reserving your rights and signing off on contracts. There's nothing wrong with contracting. There's a couple things out there, but how they're trying to apply it, the UCCs don't apply to us. Our nationality stands alone. Our status stands alone. It doesn't need the crutches of the UCC to support it. You follow what I'm saying? Our nationality stands alone. So that's what we're trying to promote. We're trying to promote a healthy balance between the spiritual laws, the spiritual and physical laws, as well as civil procedures. Because, the Moorish movement is just not about civil procedures. That's just an aspect of the movement. That's just an aspect of the movement. When we have institutions to build and provide, so that's where we at. Yeah, we do have dirty Moors. I say my opinion to the movement is give them an opportunity to correct themselves. Give them an opportunity to be properly informed, okay? And then if they prove themselves to be rebellious, then allow the Grand Sheiks, allow the Muftis, allow proper protocol to take its course.
I hear you. I hear you on that. And for people who may be Christians, one of the questions that may come to mind is, who is Prophet Noble Drew Ali? And then the other question that I have heard is that a lot of people will say, oh, even though I'm melanated and I'm in America, I'm not a Moor because Moors are Muslims. How would you respond to that?
Okay, we hear that all the time, okay? And when we say Muslim, that comes with clarity. That has to come with clarity, okay? But first, to meet them on the plane that they're at, you have to let our people know, who may be Christian, who may be other spiritual disciplines or whatever. When we teach that our people are Moors, we're strictly dealing with their pedigree and bloodline. That's what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with any religious concepts. We're just talking about your blood. We're talking about your DNA, your genetics, when we say that you're a Moor. Okay? And then we're talking about in that aspect with securing your birthright. You follow what I'm saying? Because when we deal with historical documents, and particularly the theft of this land in the Americas that was taken right up from under our forefathers, our great-grandmother and them, all right, all of the documents that were completed, all of the documents that change hands or are in the possessions of certain hands, has all people listed and recorded as Moors. That's strictly by pedigree and bloodline. Has nothing to do with any religion. In fact, when you read historical manuscripts, whenever they refer to as Muslim, whenever they refer to Muslims, they're not even dealing with the faith of Muhammad, peace be upon him. They're not dealing with him. They're strictly dealing with Africanoid people. Whenever they talk about Muslims, they're talking about, quote-unquote, so-called black people. And whenever you read in history where you see the word Christian, they're not dealing with any type of religious concept or philosophy. They're not dealing with anything about believing in a Holy Trinity. When you see in history where it says Christians, they're strictly speaking about Caucasian Europeans in a historical concept. So when we are sharing this information with our people who may be Christians, if you want to be a Christian, we will advise you that there's no salvation, earthly salvation in that for you, because it does not derive from your forefathers. But if that's what you choose to be, you have every right to be that. But you should know, even in that era, you should know that you are a Moor. And certain other Moors may refer to as a Morisco. Somebody who doesn't know their nationality or their spiritual, they don't know their spiritual inheritance or their national creed, they may refer to somebody who just does not know. But you are a Moor, regardless if you are a Jew, because we know in Al-Andalus, all across Al-Andalus, in Cordoba and Toledo and Seville and Saragossa and Granada, we had Moorish Jews.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have Moorish Jews, Moorish Christians. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, to be a Moor is strictly to be the brown skin. Not necessarily you don't have to be the darkest. You can be high yellow. You can be, quote-unquote, red bone. You're still a Moor. You can have real coarse hair, your hair can be so nappy, look like pepper in your hair. You know what I'm saying? Or it can be wavy, or it can be very straight. And you still, or if you're a melanated person, you're still a Moor. Point blank. So we'll say that's our response to our Christian brothers and sisters who want to know if being a Moor means that you have to be a Muslim. No, it does not mean that. But it does mean that being a Muslim is your earthly salvation. Mm-hmm. Now, as to who Noble Drew Ali is, we try to explain that in a very, 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 very fundamental way. We try to share that information that, throughout the world, all of the earth's records reflect that whenever a people deviate from the line of righteousness to the point that it has irritated the realm of the living God to the point where he has to disseminate chastisement on the human family, he always sends, before he enacts that punishment, he always sends a divine prophet to that people. And the code from when he raises a prophet from the people, that prophet is always raised from amongst the very people that he plans to chastise, to speak their language, to relate to them the desires of the Most High. So every people, the Arabians had Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The Israelites had Isa, they had Jesus. Okay? The Hebrew, they had Musa, Moses. Everybody had their prophet. Everybody had their prophet. So we are no different. We have not met the standards. We have not lived up to the standards of the way we could stand up to the standards in pleasing the Most High Allah. We haven't. We have failed. So in our failing to avoid the chastisement of God, Allah has sent one to redeem us, to acquire the favor and mercy of God by correcting our behavior and our spiritual concepts. And that individual that was raised amongst us in the Americas is Noble Drew Ali. And we all, often we have some Muslims even say, well, brother, I really appreciate the Moorish movement. I appreciate the work that, you guys are doing in the education, because I learned so much about these documents that, it was Muslims, who controlled this land, who was the political authority of this land. I appreciate all that knowledge. But Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the last prophet. We come across that a lot. But we have to take the same Quran and show them where it says, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he even said that Jesus will come back for the judgment. He'll come back for the judgment to deal with the people. Mm-hmm. So if Jesus is a prophet and he has to come back to deal with the people, he has to bring information to the people, then Prophet Muhammad is not the last messenger. Because that means Jesus is coming back, and the Quran tells you he's not dead. So he still has work to do. Mm-hmm. So Jesus is coming back. That means Jesus is going to be the last one. And we know that Noble Drew Ali taught us the high sciences of reincarnation, which those Orthodox Muslims do not. But the science of reincarnation is real. It has to be understood. It has to be learned, but it's real. And we know that Noble Drew Ali said that he is the return of that same Jesus in this day and time. So, excuse me one second.
Sure, no problem.
I have people calling me. But to make a long story short, Noble Drew Ali is the one that was sent to reconnect us, to earn the favor, to secure the favor of the Most High God by being in spiritual compliance and social compliance with righteousness. That's who Noble Drew Ali is. And there's nobody who has ever come along to prove or disprove his information He nobody. I even try to tear it up myself because I'm studious like that. I try to find faults, detect this or that, you know, and I couldn't destroy it. So I pledge my allegiance to it. I said, this is the medicine for our people. This is the medicine for our people right here. You know, and I got to say in all humility, you know, and much gratitude to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but, you know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad took his blueprint of success for our people, the portion they did use to be successful from Noble Drew Ali. When you see the supreme wisdom, I don't want to venture off too much, but when you look at some of the core books of the Nation of Islam, when Elijah Muhammad uses the word Asiatic, that's Noble Drew Ali. Black man is his. But when he uses that word Asiatic, that's Noble Drew Ali. When you look at that old Muhammad Speaks, look at the old time Muhammad Speaks, and you see those 2 hands sticking, that is the universal hand clap that comes from Noble Drew Ali. We can go on and on and on and on throughout the Nation of Islam's doctrine. You know, the NGT, GCC, that's Noble Drew Ali's sister auxiliaries class.
I'm sorry, please repeat that. You said the NGTC, what was that?
The MGT, GCC, the Muslim Girls Training. Yeah, General Civilization class, all the women in white with Farrakhan.
Right.
That system for sisters came from the Moorish Science Temple, from the Sisters Auxiliary Organization. All of that was mimicked. And that's cool, but all we say to the Nation of Islam is that, you know, you should come home. If you can leave the church, that's good. You're on your way to come to the Nation of Islam. You're on your way. You're good. All we say is keep coming home. Come all the way home to the Prophet. That's all we're saying. You know what I'm saying? We can show you where Elijah Muhammad was a part of the Moorish Science Temple with his fez. We can show you that. You follow what I'm saying? And you don't have anybody before Noble Drew Ali bringing those disciplines that he taught. Nobody before Noble Drew Ali. You had a lot of good people doing a lot of good things. But bring us our nationality and bring us our birthrights, that is so crucial. It's so crucial. And nobody's done that but Noble Drew Ali. As long as you got our people running around here calling themselves black, African American, whatever, Latino, when we call ourselves these names yield no benefit. Because when you have the U.S. Constitution, the Constitution is designed to protect free national persons, people who belong to nations. That's what the Constitution is designed for, and international laws are designed to protect people who belong to nations. And if you don't belong to a nation, then there are no laws that protect you. There are no laws that benefit you. So you've been categorized as a black thing because black is an adjective. When you say you're a black boy, you're a black Corvette, you're a black television. When you're a black, what are you? Black is the adjective that describes the noun. That's why you should, when you open up that dictionary and you see that word blackamoor, black describes the Moor. You follow what I'm saying? So you have to belong to a legitimate nation of people, a legitimate, recognized nation of people. And our people are Moors. And that's why, you know, a lot of our people don't understand. They call it racism. And we're not being discriminated against. It's not the judge's or the magistrate's job to tell you your nationality. His job is to extract as many funds as he can off your ignorance. That's his job. You don't know your nationality? That's more money for his daughter's Ivy League, tuition. You follow what I'm saying? Right. That's what that means. You're going to always, the people are going to eat off you. All these different people open up these convenience stores and gas stations in your neighborhood, they're eating off your ignorance. So our people have to come into the fold of their true identity in order to get the remedy that they're looking for. It's just that simple. And if we don't, I mean, the worst is just yet to come. That's, you know, and it's not a thing. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this for all the Moors, active Moors who may be listening. You know, over the years, it's my personal analysis, okay, that number one, we already know that we have to love each other. That's
right.
the main thing. We have to love each other. Those principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice are not just cliche. We have to really, truly implement that. And if we don't truly love each other and seek justice by one another, we're never going to make it out of this. We'll be recorded as the most foolish people that was ever destroyed on this planet. We'll be recorded as the most ignorant people. We have been given a divine prophet like no other prophet before him. Okay? We've been given truths. We've been given keys to wealth, material wealth of this land, if you claim your nationality, and unify as you're supposed to do, and not entertain yourselves or preoccupy yourselves with power play.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Too many Moors. Yes. We have Moorish entities or Moorish organizations and groups and temples who want to dispute some old-time irrelevant lineage. You know, do you come from Emilio or do you come from Kirkman Baby? Let those Moors, those good Moors, rest in peace. Because you know what? Our people today, they need to be rescued. Our children are going to prison. We got 13-year-old boys and girls going into maximum prisons with savage killers. We have all kind of abuses taking place of our women. Our household is out of order. You follow what I'm saying? And the Moors need to say later for that power play. And to me, the big kicker is this. Mm-hmm. There's never going to be one, I'm going to say that I don't want to deviate too much, but there's never going to be just one sweeping organization of Moors like that. Not, right. So for them to try to argue like you need to come here, you know, from this side, that's ignorant, vain, and it will never happen. But what's going to happen, if we live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and obey the prophet the way we're supposed to obey the prophet, we're going to rise and raise up in this continent, in this hemisphere, as an empire. You're going to have Moors in California who are fully engaged on a certain level of activity. You're going to have Moors out on the East Coast on a certain level of activity. You're going to have Moors in Atlanta on a certain level of effectiveness for the Moorish movement, and we're going to rise as an empire. There's not going to be just some one guy on top with a little wand, and I'm the Grand Sultan of the Moors. It's not going to be that. What's going to happen is you're going to see a change in the current of civilization with the Moors claiming their nationality. And you're going to see all kinds of episodes around this country. It's going to keep on growing until it becomes an issue. It's going to become a real viable issue that goes before Congress. And it's going to be an issue that says, do these people get their land back? Do we negotiate some type of portion of the country? It's going to reach that level. And that's when you have some Moors who are telling other Moors that, hey, you may want to read that King Alfred plan. You follow what I'm saying?
Right.
All I can do is say this, sister. All I can do is say this. Allah is God, and Nobel Peace said he told us not to even fear nothing like that. And Moors not even, I'm going to say this to Moors too. Because we dealt with this in Mecca, in the capital of the Moorish movement. We dealt with this in Chicago. And we got to tell Moors. Nobel Peace said we don't carry no weapons. And that's for all Moors throughout the whole movement. Don't carry no weapons. We're not a violent people. We're a peaceful people. We believe in an environment where the lion can lay with the lamb in peace. So operate like that. Don't try to underhand nobody. Don't try to slide through these UCC. Live a clean life. Live a righteous life. And Nobel Peace said that he will save you through all of that, through all the controversies that may come, all the danger that may come. Nobel Peace said he will save us in the apparatus and in the Zeppelin that we don't even understand. He can't even articulate to us. So I just want to say that I'm sorry for digressing on so many topics, but.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You know, the flow is appreciated. The flow is appreciated. And speaking of gaining a lesson, please explain to everyone what the Circle 7, the Holy Quran, is and what it teaches.
Right. I was always taught never to call it the Circle 7, but a lot of Moors, it's common. A lot of Moors do call it Circle 7. That's cool. But the Moorish Holy Quran is a manuscript. It is a book, a collection of written material that was kept hidden from most of the human population, of spiritual lessons, okay, and about the secret life, not secret life, well, to some degree, about the missing years, I should say, of Jesus Christ, that Noble Ali prepared for us, for our spiritual health. That's what the Moorish Holy Quran is. It's the missing life, the missing years of Jesus Christ that we carry, that we study, and we apply these lessons to our lives. There's also some instructions from Noble Ali himself on our conduct as Moors. That's what the Moorish Holy Quran is. It's often referred to as the Circle 7 Holy Quran. So you're not to be confused with the Holy Quran, the Great Quran of Mecca. Not to be confused with that. Because the word Quran in Arabic only means that which is necessary to read. That's all Quran means. And there's a lot of necessary material for our people to read to get out of this mess.
Thank you for sharing that. So how else would you recommend, like what other resources or data or any other recommended groups or temples that people can reach out to learn more and to evolve?
The number for material now. The number one material that I see out there that's really, really good is The Golden Age of the Moors by Ivan Van Sertima. Please get that book. If everybody can write that down, it's called The Golden Age of the Moors. You have to get this book. It's imperative. I almost like to call it divinely inspired, because it covers so many intricate facts and so many various topics on our nationality, our accomplishments, how to pursue education properly, the things you should pursue first when it comes to education. That book covers so much. And a lot of times, even the most studious Moors amongst us will flip through that book, read great portions, but I'm telling you, if you read that book in its entirety, almost every time you get something new from it. So I would recommend personally that Golden Age of the Moor by Ivan Van Sertima. I would definitely refer that. Now, in particular, the Moorish movement, as far as temples to go to or to go learn, there are lots. There's too many to even name. You know what I'm saying? But instinctively, I would definitely tell you, to go to Mecca, okay, under the leadership of the National Grand Sheik King Umar Bey, to get some true instructions to how the Moorish Science Temple is to operate and to function and to learn. I will go there in Chicago. We have our good brothers in Canada under the Grand Sheik Baku Joel, Upper Toronto. Excellent Moor, a devout soldier for redemption of our people. We have our brothers out there in New Jersey. Okay, we have our brother Nature L. Bay. There's another excellent brother. We have a lot of good active Moors where you can go to get information, to learn. I mean, these Moors would be more than happy, I'm sure, because I haven't met all of them, but I'm sure just from their demonstrations they'd be more than happy to assist any Moor who wants to know more about the history and civil protocol. Those are my recommendations.
Got it. And also, too,
and of course, go ahead. And of course, I'll be remiss if I don't mention my big brother, Taj Tariq Bey. Please go visit, the RV Bey website, and also our cherished elder, Dr. Elihu Pleasant Bey. Visit him at Seven Seals Publications. All right, go ahead, sis.
Yes, and I just also wanted to make mention at RV Bey Publications, which Ross Mariah does such an excellent job at keeping everything organized and bringing us some, the information in regards to the weekly classes, as well as a slew of books that have been published by her. So you all can go to RV Bay Publications, and there's weekly classes that's held in Harlem, as well as in Delaware and in Baltimore. You can go and visit that site. That's rvbaypublications.com. Now, a question that came through the chat.
One more time, I just want to throw one more person out there who's very, very knowledgeable and can assist. Chairman Adar Bey out there in VA from the Holy Temple of Science. That brother in his demonstration, his network, is a good group of Moors to go learn from. And another website is the Moorish History website. We can check out Brother Tariq's website. Just want to put those out there. Go ahead.
Can you spell that Kasu for me?
Gaines-El, it's Moorish, then the word Gaines-El, GANSUL. .com.
Okay.
MoorishGaines-El.com.
Okay. Thank you. And we had a question that come in through the chat. And they said that they're confused about so many different factions, and they'd like to know what's the difference between the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Canaanite Temple, and the Moorish Holy Temple of Science.
Okay. There's no difference. This is the same movement. This is the same entity, except for you are seeing the different phases that this entity started from. The Canaanite Temple is just when the Holy Prophet first started teaching these truths to our people. Okay, and it was civic. It was dealing with civics. And that even grew into the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, which was still dealing with civics and law, court procedures. It was dealing with, along with the spiritual lessons as well, but it's really teaching our people about their civic redemption according to the nationality. But later on, he later changed it into the Moorish Science Temple to help protect our rights, because things were becoming to a point where Moors were starting to get persecuted, harassed a little bit, and he wanted to secure our ability to communicate these teachings under our religious freedoms. So thus it became chartered out in Illinois as the Moorish Science Temple. But it is still the same mission statement, the same entity, and that's to redeem our people, to teach them their nationality and their birthrights. So all the different, you may have different Moorish groups as far as when it comes to teaching these lessons, but like I will always recommend anybody, you have the prophet's material in your possession first. Study the prophet's material first. Get rooted in that first. And then align yourselves with similar like Moors who are willing to do good, who want to go do good for the community, who are honest individuals, who are loving individuals, and who are willing to build something for our children. Get with those Moors. So it doesn't matter what grand body you with. Those are acts of divisiveness. Because Noble Jew Ali told us that there's only one prophet, there's only one temple. So if you follow these laws, it doesn't matter if you're in California, Atlanta, Indiana, New York. It don't matter. Get with the Moors who are following the prophet's law, and you'll be just fine.
Got it. And then also, too, based on what you said, which is key in reference to, like, the propaganda that's being brought forth by the Anti-Defamation League, they had made mention saying that the Moors is a patriot spin-off group with Afrocentric theories and ideologies that started in the 1990s. So, for the record, of course, in the beginning of this call, you mentioned the Moors as being the aboriginal people, the indigenous people of the planet. When it comes to the Old Canaanite Temple, looking here at the that contains a divine warning for the nations, pleas to the nation, and a message to America. And I see here that it says here that the old Canaanite temple started in 1913, and the Moorish Holy Temple of Science in 1925, and the Moorish Science Temple of America in 1928. So I just wanted to highlight that to say, in addition to us as being the original people in the planet, this concept, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the information that he was bringing, this is not anything that's new, that started in the 1990s. So I just wanted to highlight that for people who may be on a quest, because one thing that I found, Jabbar, is that everyone has a sixth sense, and they know when something is not right. And it's almost as if, like, the ancestors that's, like, living through your bloodline and your DNA, they give you this push or even sometimes whisper words in your ear to guide you, to push you to go towards, to get more information of self, or how you can really improve yourself and do better for self. But with things of this nature, like even like you said, just digging and getting the history, some people, when they hear the word more, they shut their brains, they shut their hearts, and I have to bear witness and testify and say that when they do that, they are shutting the door on their ancestors.
That's right. That's right.
I will go into some things in more detail offline, but I have to bear witness that there's been times when just from designing a flyer and putting certain images on a page, a channel will come through. Sometimes the channel is in a different language, as far as like a word of a city in a different country that I've never been to. Sometimes it's in reference to archaeological finds right here in this country that I had no idea that it existed, that was connected to the Moorish ancestors. So I just want to highlight that to say that people, if they're really sincere in venerating the ancestors and really wanting to teach their children, and even if it's children around them, if you really want people to get the truth about who their people are and what occurred, open your heart and do not close your mind and your soul to the word more, because a lot of people do that, and what I find is that they get into the mold and they're like, oh, you know, the Moors enslaved us or enslaved our people, you know, or, oh, that's just like another group, you know, we're Pan-Africanists or we're this, we're that. And I'm just want to, you know, just shed some light on what I'm saying. One day I was doing a flyer, and I placed the prophet's picture on the page, and the word Atakba came to me. So I was like, what is Atakba? I don't know what that is. So when I went and Googled it, it was an area in Calabar, which is in Nigeria.
Wow.
2 days later, I left out of my building, and it was this elder crossing the street, and Jabbar, this was like at 8 o'clock in the morning. I looked at him, and he caught my attention because he looks like Ben Vereen, right? And so I said to the brother, I said, excuse me, sir. I was like, but do you know, I said, has anyone ever told you that you look like Ben Vereen? So he replied, he was like laughing. He was like, no, who is that? So I went on to explain, and then he asked me where I was from, and I told him. And when I asked him where he was from, he said, I'm from Calabar. I almost fell out because 2 days previous to that, I never even heard of Calabar.
Wow.
So he went on to talk, and I was just like, okay. And, you know, like I said, I will go into some more detail, but I have to say I know the prophet is the truth. I could just say from bearing witness, the prophet is the truth, and the information is key to the freedoms of the people. I must have to say, it's key.
Yep. And, you know, the people, you know, the prophet said that people are going to wake up in this era of time right now, in these 2000s, you know, 2012 and a little bit beyond. We're going to see, the prophet said, the people are going to flood society where you're going to see fezzes and turbans everywhere. Believe that. You're going to see that.
Yeah.
And the people, the door that people walk through to meet the prophet from all walks of life, there's going to be various doors. It's not going to be one door. People are going to walk to the prophet. They're going to come to the prophet from their own acquired life experiences. You know, it's going to be all kinds of ways to get here. But one thing I want to say to all of our people, you know, our legacy is so great and it's so vast. It's so great and it's so vast and intricate in many ways. But, you know, we were the original Hebrew. We were the original Hebrew, right? We were the Phoenicians. We were the Egyptians. We were the Carthaginians. We were all of that.
The Sephardi Jews.
Right, but what matters is when we lost the totality of our political, social, and spiritual authority on top of this land, we left it as Moors. That's what matters. In all of the documents, so you can't go nowhere, no court of law in the world today and say, I'm an Egyptian, and get your rights. You can't do that. You can't say, I'm a Muslim. You can't go say, I'm a Hebrew, I'm an Israelite. You can't say none of that because it's not documented. The only thing that's documented as it relates to our people is as Moors. And nobody in the world is claiming to be Moors but us. Nobody's claiming that. Nobody's claiming that as their nationality. That's our nationality. That's why we say on the back of that $1 bill, that $1 note, you see that Great Seal Pyramid, and then you see that eagle. You don't see that pyramid nowhere in society. You don't see that at the State of the Union when President Obama speaking. You see that eagle. You don't see that pyramid. You can't go to any military army base and see that pyramid. You can't go to any courthouse and see that pyramid. Nobody touches that pyramid. That pyramid is the seal for the Moors. Although it's on the back of U.S. currency, you don't see it circulated like you do that eagle. You go see that eagle everywhere. You follow what I'm saying? And that's because it belongs to the Moors, and anytime you want to get any type of relief or civil justice, you have to do it in your nationality properly as a Moor. This is that simple. You can be spiritual as you want to be. When you go to court, tell it to the judge and see what he tells you. You can say I'm a spiritual, I'm on the 9th realm, I'm through these chakras, I'm going through all of this. But he don't want to hear that. He want to hear what's your nationality. And if you don't know your nationality, you're going to get hit in the head. You're going to see a lot more chakras than what you plan on experiencing. You're going there outside of your nationality. So, we tell all the Moors, you can pursue any spiritual path that you want. But when you go to court, when you travel on this land, at least travel in your proper identity and nationality so you can acquire your birthright. That's all we're saying. So you can secure your birthright. That's all we're saying. So you can enjoy those true spiritual freedoms under the protections of your birthright.
Why is it that people say that the Great Seal with the pyramid and the eye is an evil Masonic symbol, and it has nothing to do with the Moorish nation? Why is that?
Yeah, we hear Moors say that. Some Moors who just are not add up enough to understand that. That is the universal symbol of civilization across this world. No matter where you go, the Moors, and that's one thing that I have to give great homage to our big brother Taj for explaining to Moors everywhere. When you study our history, you just can't study African history. You have to study history, world history, to understand Moorish history. You follow what I'm saying? So there are a lot of Moors who say, well, it don't have nothing to do with us, but in fact, it has everything to do with us. Those pyramids are all over the world. That's the insignia, universal insignia and stamp for Moorish civilization. And as far as it referencing as being something that's negative or under European masonry, well, the Europeans, like everything else, they stole it. They tampered it. They made something that was righteous and made it appear as something negative. All we have to do is learn the root knowledge of it and correct the concepts. That's all we can tell our people. Do your history. You know, there's a lot of Moors, with all due respect, and I understand their intentions with the other Moorish flag that's being presented and circulated. I understand the concept, but it's not necessary, because if we do the root history, we know that if we read the Moorish Holy Quran, it lays out the demographics, it lays out the geography of our authority. And it lays out our authority all the way from Africa, in Egypt, the capital, all the way over here to northwest of Mexico, all the way over here into America. The same Moroccan flag, Moorish flag, the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center exclusively, that flag was flown all throughout Europe, flown through Africa, flown over here in America simultaneously. There's no need for us to say, well, this is the Moorish flag here, they got Moorish flag over there, because that contradicts the Holy Quran of the Moorish Americans. Our geography is clearly stated that we had dominion in Africa all the way over here, under the same jurisdiction, under the same flag. So I just say that to say this. There's a lot of misinformation on the surface, but if you study the root and get to the root, all we have to do is clear the concept up. That's all we have to do.
I have to bear witness on what you're saying. For a while, I was confused. Not saying that I didn't understand what was being said, but I'm like you. I like to go and dig and dig and dig. And in the digging, I came across an old reference to North America being called America. And this was like from the late 1800s, and it was spelled Amurrica. And then thereafter, I came across some information in regards to the Amaru Kingdom, which is Amurru.
Yeah,
and it encompasses. I'm sorry?
No, I was just saying down there mostly in South America and Central America. But go ahead.
Well, I'm speaking of, right, you're speaking of like it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's the Amaru, like Tupac Amaru, the chief of the Peruvians, right? But then also, too, and that's another key, too, but the Amaru Kingdom that I was speaking of encompassed the area going back to Syria, Israel, you know, the Northeast Africa, Middle Eastern area off of the coastline. And then it also showed some borderlines encompassing parts of Egypt. And when I looked into that, because, you know, as it says right in the Circle 7, being the descendants of the Canaanites and the Hamites, the Amorites, I should say Hamites. So when it's saying that, and then I was looking at that connection, and then for some reason I came across, too, some information on Morocco, and for some reason when it had the word Morocco, and then in parentheses it had Berber Amaruk. So I just bring this up to highlight, to connect the dots as far as like the empire expanding from over to the other side of Africa to this side. Also, too, what I noticed is that with the continental flag, with the pine tree on it, it is so similar to the flag, to the, you know, for Lebanon.
Yep. I didn't think about that, but I know what you're talking about.
And being that in Lebanon, you know, being that was the original area, the origin of the Phoenicians. So
you know what? That's deep. That's deep. I'll listen to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and one question that I had, and this question really came up because when I was looking at the flag that Augusta Golf Club has on their logo, they have the red flag there. At one point, was it just a regular red flag that was flown prior to the 5-pointed green star being there?
Yeah, I've heard those lessons being taught like that and going all the way back to a pure white flag. I heard various stories. You know what? And I dare not give an actual factual response to that because I like to investigate that further myself. But what I do know is that, you know, the prophet said that the flag that he retrieved for us and placed back into our authority, that flag was flown on these shores for over 50,000 years. On these shores. So imagine 50,000 years, and the system that we see called the United States today is not even over 500 years old. Now, we think that's a long time ago, man. From the founding, the formation of the United States all the way to 2012, that's a long time. Imagine 50,000 years. Then we don't have 1,000 years here under the United States governing system. Think over 50,000 years. How much history? That boggles the mind. How much history is involved with that?
Right.
So, what I do know is that the Holy One said that flag that he presented to us was over 50,000 years, and that is our flag. And that flag was given to us before the Kingdom of Morocco. So, I don't know what to say. I'm not going to wave that flag. I'm not going to forfeit that flag of our forefathers given to us by our prophets or any other flag. I'm not going to. That's just my assessment. I'm not going to do that because the prophet redeemed that flag first. So that's our flag. I don't care about the pale Arabs who may be temporarily holding it or displaying it. I don't care about that. Allah is greater. That's what I know, and that's our flag. And however that's going to fall down or unravel, that's yet to be seen. But Moors are to carry that flag out. That's our flag. Yeah, that's our flag. And the prophet went through some difficulty in a way to even get it back, to sit down and talk to the president and go to that vault and get that flag back for us. So I dare not even violate the efforts that the prophet sacrificed, his sacrifices to get that back for us. So, although I don't knock the concept of the other flag. I understand the concept, but we can teach the concept without forfeiting or waving our actual flag. So go ahead, sis.
Yeah, I was just asking because what I find is that sometimes people, the media and different institutions sometimes throw our history or little keys to our history in our face, and if we don't pay attention, it may go over our heads. And I'm just bringing this up because, recently that Augusta Golf Club selected and invited Condoleezza Rice to come into the club, and this is the first time in history that they let a woman come in, and it was her and another European woman. The European woman's last name is Moore, and then I'm thinking okay, Condoleezza being a sister, and then when I went and did some research, I saw that the golf course where they conduct the Masters, it was once the old site of an indigo plantation.
Wow.
So I said, okay, this is interesting. I was like, okay, you got a former indigo plantation, now an infamous golf course, and then when you go and look at their original logo, they have the red flag flying in the hole-in-one. So I said, oh, is this like some underlying keys or something that they know that exists, connected to the history? So that's why I just brought that up. But we do have a couple of questions in the chat. Are you okay with time?
Yeah,
Just about 3 more questions that just came in.
That's okay.
Okay. Now, with the brother Olmec, he says here what he is finding in study is that many of the so-called white institutions are ours and that they have been taken over via the occupation.
Say that,
so I guess he's speaking some of the so-called white institutions. It seems like he's speaking of some of the old historic universities.
Like Yale, he's talking about Yale, Oxford. He's speaking maybe those universities. And actually, those old, Princeton, all those universities were founded and funded still from the wealth of the Moors. That's true. A lot of these Europeans, they used to kidnap Moors, just to seek out their teachers. The Moors studied the celestial bodies. These Moors were not, even during the Inquisition, these Moors were not treated the same as the rest of the Moors. Those highly educated Moors, they were kept just to disseminate information to the ruling Europeans. And they started and financed these institutions that he's talking about, these universities. I did some reading about that a few years ago. Actually, a little bit longer than that. But, yeah, I read some information about that where, like I said, Yale, Oxford, those real prestigious universities were started by these Europeans who really kept Moors, those educational Moors, and kept them off to the side from the regular Inquisition policies that was going on through all of our people. So, yeah, that's true. I did read something about that.
Yeah, because there's something that he mentions that, because I did come across the Moorish Charity School that was later converted into Dartmouth College. But what's interesting is that I was confused because I said, okay, it says Moorish Charity School, but then in the description it says that it was set up to educate Native Americans. And you know how usually when a school is named, they always say like, oh, it was named because of the founder or because of a sponsor. Yep. But it never said anything like that. So I just, that is something that, he may want to look into a little further. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do have 2 more questions in the chat and then a caller that just came in.
All right.
Let's see here. Caller 347-972, welcome to Silver Alert. Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Peace. This is Kyle Bay from the New York Republic.
Islam.
Peace, brother. Islam.
Peace, Islam. The indigenous red flag, back to that. I actually have a picture here with Nobel Ali. Some say, the picture could have been photoshopped, but he's in Havana, Cuba, during the Havana, Cuba Convention, and he took a picture. In his left hand, he has the United States flag with the 50 stars. In the right hand, he has the indigenous red flag with no 5-pointed green star in between it. I'm looking at the picture right now.
What flag is in the right hand?
The red flag, the red indigenous flag that was flown here in the Americas without the 5-pointed green star.
With no 5-pointed green star.
Yes, it's a red flag.
I've never seen that, beloved.
You ever seen a picture with Nobel Ali with the big hat on? Look like a Mexican hat.
Sombrero,
sitting down with his right leg across his left leg, and he's holding the American flag, the United States flag, the 50 stars, red, white, and blue, and in the right hand he's holding a red flag, but it doesn't have a star in the middle.
I have to look at it, brother. I have that picture. I have to, I have to go look at it. It's in the vehicle that somebody's using right now. I'm going to look at it. But, no, I've never seen that. I've never seen that before.
Yeah. Also, that flag is flying in Suriname and Guyana, still up to date from what I hear. And it's still in the mountains of Trulani in Jamaica, where the Maroons, had gained their independence in the mountains of Trulani in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
I do know down there in Jamaica, I met a brother from there, those mountains, and like they were saying, those Moors out there in the mountains, the Moors out there in the region, the outskirts of the region, they're not up into that corporate, they're not dealing with them Europeans like the rest of those people are. So yeah, those Moors are to themselves. Yeah, I did meet a brother who said that. So there's some validity to that Moorish presence, but I would like to look more into that flag for sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because it's there. Yeah, I met some people from Guyana that actually says, there's an indigenous red flag, but they never knew what it meant. And I was sitting in class with a brother, and the brother's parents is from Jamaica, and he actually went down there and saw the red flag in the mountains of Trulani.
Yeah.
Along with that is the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Queen of the Maroons and the Queen of England. It's still up there. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, that's some thorough information, beloved. Like I said, even when I get off the phone, I'm going to look. I'm going to investigate that, because the only flag I do know that the Prophet presented for us are displayed in any photograph has always been with the red flag with the green 5-pointed star. But like I said, I don't dismiss anything. I always investigate all information, so I will do that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay. I appreciate you and the knowledge that you're dropping also, man.
Islam. We love you, beloved.
Islam. Peace, Natasha.
All right, peace. Islam, brother.
Islam.
We had another comment that came in through the chat, and it says here that the red flag has always been our flag, and when we dig a little deeper, we will see that red is always associated with us. Study the cardinals of the Vatican.
Yeah,
and
I've heard that.
And so, also, too, and this is going back to, I guess, what you mentioned about a half an hour ago, where you had stated that Christianity can never provide true salvation.
That's right.
For our people. So the question is who is St. James Matamoros? And I'll just give a like a synopsis, because the question is he goes into a lot of detail here. But he was saying that when he was doing some research, he saw that St. James was, in the Bible is actually referenced in Spain as St. James Matamoros. So in Spanish, mata means to murder, and then, moros meaning Moors. So he wanted to know if you could.
Kill our people. It sounds like to me. But according to that breakdown, but I don't have any idea who that is. But I'll be more than happy to again investigate, and maybe on another show we can address that. But I don't know who that is.
Okay. But all right, but it's something that he mentions that because you know that Moorish de Bracho is coming up on the 29th, and going back to what you were saying about different people reenacting like the Crusades and the Inquisitions and stuff. That's like a 300 euro festival in Mexico, where they do an elaborate reenactment of that. So it's just something that you mentioned that. Well, we have about 13 minutes left, and do you have anything else that you would like to share in regards to any outreach that your temple is doing, programs or any types of events?
Well, we do have the National Convention coming up here in October. There are a few dates. I'm not sure. People can call, though, to confirm those dates in October here. But it's going to be going on there in Chicago, Illinois, right there in Mecca. So that's really the only thing that's coming up that we're looking forward to. Other than that, we would just like to reiterate, though, to all of the Moors to please, please, please be active, regardless of what region you're in, regardless of what territory you're in, to always be active, always present classes, have some classes for the public. Don't be intimidated by the false propaganda, by people like the Southern Poverty Law Center, putting the misinformation, disinformation out about the Moorish movement. Stand firm, stand on your square, live a clean life, be righteous and love. Love. Don't be involved or preoccupied with power play and egotism. Later for that. We got to rescue the people, and get them back on the right side of government. You follow what I'm saying? So we can free our children up. That's what we need to do. It's all about freeing our children up. The egotism, all of that, I would even understand. I wouldn't accept it, but I would even understand it if Moors owned something. I understand if you had 13 factories out, in New York and in California, you got, thousands and thousands of land, acres of land. I can see the ignorance. I'll be able to justify, put in context. But Moors we don't even own nothing. And Moors people arguing, power play while people are suffering. Our people born before don't even know their nationality. It's like the prophet didn't even come. So, we got to get back on our square, get back on our jobs, learn to love each other, because we're going to rise as an empire. So just forget about anybody coming under one particular grand body. Just if you're with a grand body, make your grand body the best grand body it can be in service to our people in obedience to the prophet. Make it the best. That's all you can do. But we got to rescue our people. Don't be intimidated. That's all I can say, because now they're trying to implement, this type of misinformation. Like one thing I did want to say, like, for example, the reverse psychology, the stratagems that they're using. They had one on us which says Moors deny tax fraud. I've probably seen that myself with the Grand Sheik in Louisville, Kentucky. They had Moors deny tax fraud. Now, they were asking all kinds of questions about Moorish history, Nobel Ali. They asked a couple of questions about the tax, about taxes, but it wasn't even about taxes. But the thing is this is what I'm saying. They titled it, after it was all done, wrapped in the can, a couple of days later, whatever, when they aired it, it said Moors deny tax fraud. Now, for the Moors to deny tax fraud, right, that would instinctively, it's implied that Moors was indeed charged with tax fraud. If you're denying it, that means somebody charged you with it, right?
Right,
Nobody
exactly.
Nobody ever charged us with tax fraud. Nobody made no allegations of any criminal wrongdoing. But the thing is, they seen that our people was gravitating in this area in particular, up here in Indiana, Fort Wayne, South Bend, Indianapolis. Moors are coming through full steam ahead. Let me say that. They're coming through by the numbers. But so what they did is they said, whoa. We got to somehow criminalize this or demonize it. They had nothing on us. They still don't. But they had and me in particular, like I said, I've never been arrested for nothing. Never. I'm not done my stuff. I just never got caught back in the day, back in the days of ignorance. But my point is, they had nothing on me where they could demonize the movement. So they had to make it up. So they said Moors denied tax fraud. And we was never charged with anything. That's just one example of how these are the stratagems that they're using. We're not out here wilding out. Moors, majority of the Moors are peaceful, orderly, law-abiding. We have, like any society, a couple of knuckleheads out there doing some crazy acts, like any society. You follow what I'm saying? One police officer who beats up a guy for no reason don't mean you can blame the whole police department. You can blame one Moorish American who does something silly. But the thing is, they want to show us on the Southern Poverty Law Center's website, right, in conjunction, or not in conjunction, but in comparison, or trying to make it some similar observation of us with these radical Europeans, like I said, who's out here carrying firearms and shooting it out to police. More is not about none of that. So I'm just saying, don't let that, don't become a victim of reverse psychology where you lose focus and determination to rescue your people. That's all we're saying. What I'm saying? Stay focused on rescuing your people. And Allah will see you through. There's no mystery about it. Allah is real. Is the truest reality. Is the truest force in reality. So as long as you're living a clean life, you won't want for nothing. Your finances be over. That's older and older. That's what the Bible means when it says, pursue the kingdom of God first, and then all things will be added onto you. And I'm going to say this before we wrap up. I'm going to tell you, there's been a time where I thought, man, our people just don't want to do right. And this was a long time ago, years ago. I mean, it's about 10 years ago. And I said, I'm just going to stay to myself. I come across somebody who want to know the knowledge, I teach them. All devout Moors go through this thinking, but I was like, I'm going to stay to myself for, a few months. And let me tell you, those were some of the most troubling times of my life when I said I'm just going to stick to myself and not be out here on behalf of the people. I was going through hell. You know what I'm saying? So it's like Job. It was like Job in the Bible. I was running from my mission. I was like, you see what I want to do, right? It's going to do me. You know what I'm saying? But once I did that, Allah was ripping my life up in half. And when I got back on the job, when I got out here for the people, I don't want for nothing. And I'm very comfortable. In spite of the slander and the libel crap they put out there through, Southern Poverty Law Center, that solves the black crap. And the
Anti-Defamation League. We can't leave that out.
All of that slander, you know what? All it did was give me more brothers and sisters around the country. More than I didn't know before. So what they did was help unify the movement, my book. Because I had Moors calling me from all around the country. I had Moors calling me from prison, New York, and California, everywhere. I mean, from maximum prisons calling me. I was talking Moors from everywhere. And all because of that article. Moors I would have never talked to before. So I just say this, that Allah will take something even negative that your enemies might hurl at you and make it something for the benefit of yourself and your people.
Right.
So don't be afraid. That's all I can say, sis. There's nothing righteous tonight. Tonight was a good energy tonight.
It was. Definitely. And I thank you. And we'll have to reconvene again because there's so much more to cover.
Yep, no doubt.
All right. So until next time, peace and love. And I thank you for coming on, Jabbar. Talk to you soon.
Peace to all. Yep, Islam.
Peace, Islam. All right. There we have it. Another edition of Civil Alerts. And this is the Thursday night special, MOOR INSIGHT. This is your host, St. Asha. I look forward to connecting with everybody on next Tuesday, or this upcoming Tuesday. And remember, the goal of Civil Alert is to be informative, engaging, and third eye opening. Peace and love, everybody.